When you opened your eyes this morning, something remarkable happened. You were given 24 brand new hours that nobody else can take from you. 24 opportunities, 24 chances to become better than you were yesterday. But here's what most people don't understand, and this is where everything changes. Those hours are slipping through your fingers right now, and most folks won't even notice they're gone until it's too late. Let me tell you something that took me years to figure out. I used to think time was just something that passed. Monday turned into Tuesday, January turned into December, and years just seemed to evaporate. I worked my job at the department store, came home tired, watched some television, went to bed, and did it all over again. Sound familiar? I was broke, frustrated, and going nowhere fast. Then one day, my mentor, Earl Schoaf, asked me a question that stopped me cold. Jim, what are you doing with your hours? Not my days, not my weeks, my hours. That question changed everything because I realized I'd been treating hours like they were nothing, like they were just empty spaces between morning and night. But here's the truth that'll set you free if you let it sink in. Every single hour is either building your future or it's tearing it down. There's no neutral ground. That hour you spent complaining about your job, that didn't just vanish into thin air. It programmed your mind for failure. That hour you spent learning something new, that became part of who you are. It's still with you right now, paying dividends. The mathematics of this will blow your mind once you see it clearly. 1 hour a day doesn't sound like much, does it? Anybody can find 1 hour. But let's do the math together. 1 hour daily for a year is 365 hours. That's more than 9 full work weeks dedicated to your personal growth. In 5 years, that's 1,825 hours, enough time to become an expert in almost anything. In 10 years, you could master multiple skills, transform your health, build wealth, and become completely unrecognizable from who you are today. But most people never do this calculation. They waste an hour here, squander an hour there, and then wonder why their lives don't change. They say, Jim, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to work on my dreams. Let me be straight with you. That's not true. What they're really saying is, I don't value my future enough to invest my hours wisely right now. And that's a painful truth, but it's one we need to face. Here's what I learned the hard way. Successful people don't have more hours than you do. The CEO of a major corporation gets 24 hours. The single mother working 2 jobs gets 24 hours. The teenager playing video games gets 24 hours. You get 24 hours. The only difference, and this is crucial, is what they do with those hours. The question isn't whether you have time. The question is whether you respect time enough to use it well. I remember when I finally got serious about changing my life. I was 25 years old, broke, and deeply in debt. My mentor told me, Jim, if you'll spend 1 hour a day reading, in 5 years you'll be amazed at where you are. I didn't fully believe him, but I was desperate enough to try. So I started reading books on success, personal development, business, and philosophy for 1 hour every evening. Do you know what happened? Within months, I started thinking differently. Within a year, I was earning differently. Within 5 years, I had become a completely different person. That 1 hour didn't just give me information. It gave me new eyes to see the world. It introduced me to ideas from people who had already achieved what I wanted. It showed me that my problems weren't unique and that there were proven solutions I'd never considered. But here's the key. It was the consistency of that single hour, repeated day after day, that created the transformation. 1 hour wasn't magic, but 1 hour multiplied by discipline became unstoppable. Now let's get honest about where your hours are actually going. The average person watches more than 4 hours of television every day. 4 hours. That's 1/6 of your entire day, watching other people live their lives, solve their problems, and chase their dreams while you sit there consuming entertainment that won't mean anything a week from now. I'm not saying you can never relax or enjoy yourself, but 4 hours every single day? That's 1,460 hours a year, enough time to start a business, write a book, get in the best shape of your life, or learn skills that could double your income. The harsh reality is this. Your current life is a perfect reflection of how you've been spending your hours up until this very moment. If you're unhappy with your bank account, go back and look at what you did with your hours over the past year. If you're disappointed with your health, examine how many hours you invested in exercise and nutrition versus how many you spent on the couch. If your relationships are struggling, Count the hours you gave them versus the hours you gave to distractions that don't matter. This isn't about making you feel guilty. It's about waking you up to the incredible power you have right now. See, most people are waiting for some big moment when they get the promotion, when the kids are older, when they have more money, when life settles down. But life doesn't work that way. Life is happening right now, 1 hour at a time. And every hour that passes is either an investment or an expense. Think about it like this. If someone handed you $86,400 at the beginning of each day, but told you that any amount you didn't invest wisely would disappear at midnight, what would you do? Would you let thousands of dollars evaporate unused? Of course not. You'd be strategic. You'd be intentional. You'd make every dollar count. Well, you get 86,400 seconds every day, and the same principle applies. Except you can't save these seconds or roll them over to tomorrow. Use them or lose them forever. The beautiful thing, and this is where hope comes in, is that you can start right now. This very hour can be different from all the hours that came before it. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect circumstances. You just need to decide that from this point forward, you're going to treat your hours like the precious, irreplaceable resources they are. Because once this hour is gone, you can't buy it back. You can't borrow it from tomorrow. It's gone forever, and what you did with it or didn't do with it becomes part of your permanent record written into the story of your life. So now that we understand what we've got, these precious hours that keep coming, whether we use them well or waste them, let's talk about what actually happens inside a single hour. Because here's where most people get it wrong. They think an hour is too short to make a difference. They tell themselves, what can I really accomplish in just 1 hour? And that kind of thinking is exactly what keeps them stuck year after year. Let me break down what a real hour looks like. 60 minutes. That's enough time to read 30 to 40 pages of a good book. That's enough time to have a meaningful conversation with your child that they'll remember for years. That's enough time to plan your week, to exercise, to learn a new skill, to work on your side business, to write several pages of that book you keep talking about. An hour is substantial. An hour is powerful. But only if you treat it that way. I learned to categorize my hours into 2 types. Investment hours and expense hours. Investment hours are the ones that pay you back with interest. When you spend an hour learning, that's an investment. When you spend an hour building relationships, that's an investment. When you spend an hour improving your health or developing a skill, that's an investment. These hours compound. They grow. They multiply their value over time. Then there are expense hours, hours that cost you but give you nothing in return. Now, I'm not talking about rest or legitimate recreation. I'm talking about the hours spent complaining, gossiping, scrolling mindlessly through social media, watching television shows you don't even enjoy, or sleeping in when you know you should be up working on your dreams. These hours are gone forever, and they took a piece of your potential with them. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Years ago, I met a millionaire at a conference, a self-made man who'd built an empire from nothing. We got to talking, and I asked him what made the difference in his success. He told me something I'll never forget. He said, Jim, every evening I ask myself one question. What did I do with my last hour? Did I invest it or did I expense it? He explained that this simple question kept him honest with himself. It made him aware of how he was actually living, not just how he intended to live. So I started asking myself that same question, and let me tell you, it was uncomfortable at first. Because when you really examine how you're spending your hours, you might not like what you see. I found hours I couldn't account for, hours that just disappeared into activities that meant nothing. But that awareness became the turning point. Once you see where your hours are going, you can redirect them. Let's talk about the specific hours that shape your life. First, there's the morning hour, that first hour after you wake up. This hour sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people stumble out of bed, check their phone, get caught up in other people's emergencies and opinions, rush through their morning in chaos, and wonder why they feel behind all day. But what if you protected that first hour? What if you used it to feed your mind something positive, to exercise, to plan your day, to work on your most important goal before the world starts demanding your attention? That single hour would transform your entire day, and your days would transform your life. Then there's the lunch hour. Most people use this time to complain about work, to gossip with colleagues, or to mindlessly scroll through their phones while eating food that makes them tired for the afternoon. But I've watched successful people use lunch breaks to read, to make important phone calls, to mentor someone, to work on side projects. They see that hour as prime real estate in the middle of their day, an opportunity disguised as a break. And the evening hours, this is where dreams either grow or die. After work, after dinner, most people collapse in front of the television. They're tired, they deserve to relax, and so they give away 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours to entertainment that requires nothing of them and gives nothing back. But here's what I discovered. The people who change their lives are the ones who guard those evening hours like treasure. They're tired too, but they invest 1 or 2 of those hours into their future anyway. They read, they learn, they build, they create. And over time, those evening hours become the foundation of a completely different life. The truth is harsh but liberating. Entertainment and distraction are stealing your future. I'm not saying you can't ever watch a movie or enjoy yourself. But when entertainment becomes your default, when you give it hour after hour, day after day, you're essentially trading your dreams for temporary comfort. You're choosing to be a spectator in other people's stories instead of the author of your own. Let me give you some concrete examples of what happens when you reclaim just 1 hour a day. If you read for 1 hour daily, you'll complete about 50 books a year. 50 books. Most people don't read 50 books in a decade. That's 50 different teachers, 50 new perspectives, 50 opportunities to learn something that could change everything. In 5 years, you'll have read 250 books. That level of input will fundamentally rewire how you think. If you exercise for 1 hour daily, within months your energy will skyrocket, your confidence will grow, your health markers will improve, and you'll add years to your life. 1 hour of movement can give you more productive hours throughout the rest of your day because you'll think clearer and have more stamina. If you spend 1 hour daily working on a side business or developing a valuable skill, within a year you could have a viable income stream. Within 5 years, that side project could become your main source of income, freedom from a job you hate, control over your time, the ability to live life on your terms. If you invest 1 hour daily in your most important relationships, really, talking with your spouse, playing with your kids, calling your parents, you'll build bonds that most people only wish they had. You'll create memories and connections that sustain you through everything life throws at you. But here's the thing, you don't even need to transform your whole day. You don't need to become some superhuman who never relaxes. You just need to reclaim a few hours, just a few. Take 1 hour from television and give it to reading. Take 1 hour from sleeping in and give it to exercise. Take 1 hour from scrolling social media and give it to building something meaningful. Just a few hours, redirected with intention, and your life begins to change. Most people won't do this. They'll hear these ideas and think, that sounds great, Jim, I should really do that. And then they'll go right back to their old patterns. Why? Because change is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. It's easier to collapse on the couch than to open a book. It's easier to sleep in than to get up and exercise. It's easier to waste time than to invest it wisely. But here's what they don't understand, and this might be the most important thing I can tell you. The discomfort of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. That hour you spend doing something difficult, something that challenges you, something that makes you better, the discomfort fades quickly, but the results last. However, that hour you waste, you can't get it back. And someday you'll look back and realize those wasted hours added up to a wasted life. I remember when I first started taking my hours seriously. It wasn't easy. I wanted to watch television like I always had. I wanted to sleep in on weekends. I wanted to take the easy path. But I made a decision that even when I didn't feel like it, I would honor my commitment to myself. I would treat my future self with enough respect to invest these hours wisely today. And I can tell you, after decades of living this way, it was the best decision I ever made. The power is entirely in your hands right now. This hour, the one you're living in at this very moment, is an opportunity. The next hour will be another opportunity. Tomorrow you'll wake up to 24 more opportunities. The question is, what will you do with them? Will you invest them or expense them? Will you treat them like the precious, irreplaceable gifts they are, Or will you let them slip away while you wait for someday, for later, for when things are perfect? Because I'm here to tell you, perfect never comes. All you have is now, 1 hour at a time. And what you do with these hours will determine absolutely everything about the life you end up living. Now let's get down to the mechanics of how this actually works. Because understanding that hours matter is one thing, but knowing how to transform those hours into real results is where most people get lost. Here's what I discovered after years of study and personal experience. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every single day. And failure? Failure is just a few errors in judgment repeated every single day. The difference between where you are and where you want to be comes down to what you do with your hours consistently over time. The word discipline scares some people. They think it means being rigid or giving up all pleasure, but that's not what I'm talking about. Discipline is simply making yourself do what you know you should do, even when you don't feel like doing it. It's honoring the commitment you made to yourself when nobody's watching and when it would be so easy to quit. And here's the beautiful part. Discipline practiced in small doses, in single hours throughout your day, creates results that look like magic to people who don't understand the process. Think about it this way. If you make a poor choice today, skip your exercise, eat junk food, waste time on activities that don't serve you, nothing catastrophic happens. You don't immediately gain 30 pounds. Your bank account doesn't suddenly empty. Your relationships don't fall apart. That's why these small errors in judgment are so dangerous. They seem harmless in the moment. But repeat that error tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. And those small mistakes compound into major disasters. 6 months from now, a year from now, you wake up overweight, broke, and wondering what happened. But the opposite is also true, and this is where hope lives. If you make a good choice today, read for 30 minutes, exercise, work on your goal, have a meaningful conversation, nothing miraculous happens immediately either. You don't instantly become successful. But repeat that positive discipline tomorrow and the next day and the next, and those small actions compound into results that will absolutely amaze you. 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll be a different person living a different life. I love using farming analogies because they make this crystal clear. You can't plant seeds in the spring, neglect your fields all summer, and expect to harvest crops in the fall. Nature doesn't work that way. Every season has its responsibilities. Spring is for planting. Summer is for cultivating and protecting your crops. Fall is for harvesting. Winter is for preparing for the next cycle. And here's the thing, every hour you have is either a planting hour, a cultivating hour, or a neglecting hour. There's no way around it. When I was building my business and working on myself, I developed certain non-negotiable disciplines that I practiced every single day. One of them was journaling. Every evening, I would spend 15 to 20 minutes writing about my day, what I learned, what I accomplished, what I could have done better, where I was heading. Now, writing in a journal for 20 minutes doesn't sound like it would change your life, does it? But over months and years, that journal became a record of my growth, a tool for self-awareness, and a way to hold myself accountable. That simple discipline, practiced 1 hour at a time over the years, gave me insights about myself and my patterns that most people never discover. Another discipline was reading. I committed to reading at least 1 hour every day, sometimes more. And I didn't just read anything, I was selective. I read books that challenged me, that taught me about business, about human nature, about philosophy and success principles. Each book was like having a conversation with someone who'd already walked the path I wanted to walk. And here's what happened. Those books didn't just give me information. They changed how I thought. They showed me possibilities I'd never considered. They introduced me to ideas that became the foundation of everything I built. But here's the gap that destroys most people's dreams. The gap between knowing and doing. Most people know what they should do. If I asked someone what would improve your life, they could tell me, exercise more, read more, save money, spend time with family, learn new skill. They know. The information isn't the problem. The problem is they don't do it. They know but they don't act. And knowledge without action is just entertainment. It makes you feel good temporarily, but changes nothing. Why is this gap so hard to close? Because of two little words that have killed more dreams than any external obstacle ever could: later and tomorrow. These words are dream killers. I'll start exercising tomorrow. I'll begin that course later. I'll have that important conversation with my spouse tomorrow. And tomorrow comes, and it turns into another tomorrow, and another, until years have passed, and nothing has changed except you're older and more regretful. Here's what I learned to do. I stopped trusting tomorrow. I started treating every hour like it was all I had. When an hour arrived and I knew there was something I should do with it, I did it right then. Not later, not tomorrow, right then, because I realized that later is where dreams go to die. Later is a comfortable lie we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of discipline right now. Let me give you a framework that can change everything for you. It's simple, and that's exactly why it works. At the beginning of each day, identify 3 hours, just 3 that you're going to intentionally invest rather than accidentally spend. Maybe it's your first hour after waking up, your lunch hour, and 1 hour in the evening. Just 3 hours out of 24. During those 3 hours, you're going to do something that builds your future. Read, exercise, work on your business, learn a skill, whatever matters most to your goals. Now here's the key. You don't need motivation to do this. Motivation is temporary and unreliable. What you need is a decision followed by a commitment. You decide what those 3 hours will be used for, and then you honor that commitment regardless of how you feel. Some days you'll feel excited and energized. Other days you'll feel tired and resistant. Doesn't matter. You do it anyway. That's discipline. That's what separates people who achieve their goals from people who just talk about them. The compound effect of this approach is staggering. 3 productive hours a day is 21 hours a week. That's over 1,000 hours a year dedicated to your growth and goals. Most people don't invest 1,000 focused hours into their dreams over an entire decade, but you could do it in 1 year. And when those hours are focused, intentional, and consistent, they create momentum that becomes almost unstoppable. Here's the truth that will either inspire you or make you uncomfortable. You can change your entire life trajectory by changing what you do in the next hour. Not tomorrow, not next week, the next hour. Right now, you have the power to make a choice that your future self will thank you for. You can pick up a book instead of turning on the television. You can go for a walk instead of scrolling through your phone. You can work on your dream instead of making excuses for why you can't. The disciplines that transform hours into results aren't complicated or mysterious. They're simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. The hard part is doing them when you don't feel like it, when nobody's watching, when it would be so much easier to quit. That's when your character is being built. That's when your future is being shaped. Because discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. The discomfort of doing what you should do is light compared to the heavy burden of looking back and wishing you had. Let me paint a picture for you of what life looks like when you truly grasp that every hour is an opportunity. When this philosophy becomes part of who you are, not just something you think about occasionally, everything shifts. Your mornings feel different because you're not just waking up to get through another day, you're waking up to invest in a future you're actively creating. Your evenings feel different because instead of collapsing in exhaustion and regret, you're going to bed knowing you moved forward, even if just by inches. This is what living with intention looks like, and it's available to anyone willing to pay the price of discipline. But let's also look at the alternative, because sometimes we need to see both paths clearly. Think about someone at age 40 who spent the last 20 years treating hours like they didn't matter. 20 years of coming home and immediately turning on the television. 20 years of putting off exercise until tomorrow. 20 years of saying, someday I'll start that business, or eventually I'll write that book, or one day I'll get serious about my dreams. What does that person's life look like at 40? They're probably stuck in a job they tolerate at best, carrying extra weight they promised themselves they'd lose, living paycheck to paycheck despite 2 decades of earning, and feeling a deep sense of disappointment that they're not where they thought they'd be by now. Now imagine someone else at 40 who understood 15 years ago, maybe they were 25, broke, and frustrated that their hours mattered. They started reading 1 hour a day. They began exercising consistently. They spent their evenings building skills and working on a side business instead of watching shows they'd forget by morning. What does their life look like? They're probably running their own business or in a leadership position they earned through competence. They're healthy, energetic, and look younger than their years. They've got savings and investments growing. They have deep relationships because they invested time in people, not just entertainment. Same 24 hours every day. Completely different lives. The difference isn't luck. It isn't talent. It isn't circumstances. Though I know that's what people want to believe because it lets them off the hook. The difference is that one person understood something the other didn't. Life is not what happens to you in the big dramatic moments. Life is what you do with the quiet hours when nobody's watching and nobody cares whether you make the right choice or the easy choice. And here's something that might shake you up a bit. Every day you delay, every hour you waste, you're not just staying in place. You're actually moving backward. Because the world isn't standing still waiting for you to get your act together. Other people are reading, learning, building, growing. The gap between where you are and where you could be gets wider every single day you choose comfort over discipline. Time is moving, with you or without you, and it's entirely indifferent to your excuses. But there's something almost spiritual that happens when you start living this way. Your self-respect grows. See, you can lie to other people about who you are and what you're doing, but you can't lie to yourself. When you look in the mirror, you know the truth. You know whether you're keeping your promises to yourself or breaking them. And every time you do what you said you'd do, even when it's hard, even when nobody would know if you didn't, something inside you gets stronger. You start trusting yourself. You start believing you're the kind of person who follows through. And that belief becomes the foundation for everything else you want to build. The ripple effects of one transformed life are impossible to measure. When you change because you've been investing your hours wisely, it doesn't just affect you. Your children watch how you live, and they learn more from what you do than what you say. If they see you reading, they'll understand that learning matters. If they see you exercising, they'll understand that health matters. If they see you working on your goals, they'll understand that dreams require effort. You're teaching them how to live by how you spend your hours. That's legacy. Your coworkers notice when you're growing. Your competence increases. Your value rises. Opportunities come looking for you. Your friends either get inspired by your transformation and start making changes themselves, or they fall away because your growth makes them uncomfortable. Either way, you're creating a life that attracts better circumstances and better people. Your community benefits because someone who's improving themselves naturally contributes more. You have more to give because you've been investing in yourself. Let me ask you some questions, and I want you to really think about these. If you keep living exactly as you've been living, spending your hours exactly as you've been spending them, where will you be 1 year from now? Be honest. Will anything be different? Will you weigh less or more? Will you have more money or more debt? Will your relationships be stronger or more strained? Will your skills be sharper or more outdated? If nothing changes in how you use your hours, nothing changes in your life. It's that simple. Now flip it around. If you started treating every hour like the opportunity it is, if you invested just a few hours each day into becoming better, where could you be a year from now? What could you learn? What could you build? What weight could you lose? What income could you create? What relationships could you heal or deepen? The potential is staggering when you really think about it. 1 year, 52 weeks, 365 days, 8,760 hours. How many of those hours would you need to redirect to completely change your trajectory? Not all of them, just some of them, just enough to matter. Here's something else. It's never too late to start. I don't care if you're 25 or 75. I don't care if you've wasted the last decade or the last 3 decades. Yes, the best time to start taking your hours seriously was years ago. But the second best time is right now, this hour, this moment. You can't change the past. Those hours are gone, but you can absolutely change what happens next, and what happens next determines everything about your future. Some of you are thinking, but Jim, I've already made so many mistakes, I've wasted so much time. And you're right, you have. We all have. I wasted years before I figured this out. But here's what matters. Are you going to compound those mistakes by wasting more years? Or are you going to draw a line in the sand right now and say, that was then, this is now, and from this point forward, my hours will count for something? The power is entirely in your hands, not your boss's hands, not your spouse's hands, not the government's hands, your hands. Every single hour, you get to choose. Will this be an investment hour or an expense hour? Will this hour build my future or steal from it? Will I do what's easy or what's right? Will I honor my potential or betray it? These are the questions that matter, and you're the only one who can answer. So here's my challenge to you, and I mean this with every fiber of my being. Make the next hour count. Not tomorrow's hours, you're not promised those. Not yesterday's hours, those are gone forever. The next hour, the one that's coming. Do something with it that your future self will thank you for. Read something meaningful. Move your body. Work on your goal. Have a real conversation with someone you love. Create something. Learn something. Build something. Just don't waste it. Because that hour is a gift, and gifts are meant to be treasured, not thrown away. Your life, when it's all said and done, will be nothing more and nothing less than the sum of your hours. Every hour you've lived until now has brought you exactly here. And every hour you live from this point forward will take you somewhere. The only question is, where? That decision, that power, that responsibility, it's yours. It's always been yours. And it starts right now, with this hour, with this choice, with this moment. Make it count.